The morning began like any other for Mark, the quiet janitor who worked at the busy research school. He moved through the empty hallways with his cleaning cart, while the faint echo of early footsteps filled the building. Students were just starting to arrive and teachers were preparing for another long day of lessons. Mark liked this time because it was peaceful and simple. He was a man who enjoyed order and routine. He never caused problems and never drew attention. Most people barely noticed him, and that never bothered him. He was used to being invisible, but this morning would not stay normal for long. As Mark turned a corner into the science wing, he saw a small figure standing in the middle of the hallway. It was a young girl named Lena. She looked pale and unsteady, as if she had just woken from a bad dream. Mark recognized her because she always walked with her mother, who worked in the research labs. But today she was alone and trembling. Before Mark could call out to her, she suddenly collapsed onto the floor. Mark dropped his broom and rushed to her side. He knelt beside her and gently placed his hand on her arm to check if she was breathing. The moment his skin touched hers, he froze. Her skin felt strangely warm, almost like it carried a faint vibration, not shaking but humming. The sensation was so unusual that Mark pulled his hand back for a moment, then tried again. The warmth was still there, and it seemed to pulse like a slow signal. Lena's eyes fluttered, but she did not wake. Mark leaned closer, worried that she might be having a medical emergency. He called out for help, but the hallway remained empty. He checked her breathing again and tried to stay calm. Something was deeply wrong. He felt it in his gut. Then he heard footsteps. A teacher named Miss Carter appeared at the end of the hallway. She saw Mark leaning over Lena, and her face instantly changed into shock and anger. She dropped the papers in her hands and shouted his name. Her voice echoed so loudly that even Lena's body twitched. Mark looked up confused. He tried to explain that Lena had collapsed and he was only helping her. But Miss Carter was already running toward them, yelling for security. She ordered Mark to step away from the girl. Her expression was filled with fear and accusation. She kept repeating that she saw him touching the student. Mark lifted both hands in the air and backed away slowly. His heart pounded in his chest. He tried to speak, but the words tangled together. The situation was changing too fast. He had only tried to help, but now he was being treated like a threat. Security guards rushed in. Two of them grabbed Mark by the arms. Another knelt beside Lena, but he did not check her the way Mark had. He only lifted her gently and carried her toward the nurse's office. Mark wanted to shout that her skin felt wrong, that something was happening inside her body. But he stayed silent because everyone already believed the worst. The head of security questioned him while holding his badge. The teacher demanded his immediate removal. They accused him of inappropriate contact. They accused him of lying. No one asked what he had seen. No one asked why Lena had collapsed. No one cared about the strange warmth on her skin. Within minutes, Mark was told he was fired. The words hit him harder than any punch. He felt his life slipping out of his control. He had worked here for years with no trouble. Now he was dismissed without a chance to defend himself. They told him to collect his things and leave before the parents arrived. Mark walked away in a daze. His hands shook as he picked up his cart. He turned to look back at the exact spot where Lena had collapsed. That was when he noticed something that made his breath stop. On the floor, faint and almost invisible, was a small pattern of glowing dust. It shimmered lightly as if reflecting a light that was not there. No one else seemed to see it. The guards walked through it without noticing anything. But Mark could see the shape clearly. It looked like a swirling pattern, almost alive. He stared at it, frozen with a mix of fear and curiosity. Why could he see this when had it appeared, and why had Lena been at the center of it? The morning that started simple had just opened the door to something far beyond normal. Mark felt it deep inside. Something had changed, and he was the only one who noticed. Mark walked home feeling empty and confused. The air outside felt colder than usual. His thoughts kept circling around the moment. Lena collapsed. He tried to forget the strange warmth he felt on her skin, but the memory kept rising again and again. It did not feel like a normal fever. It felt alive. It felt like something moving beneath her skin. But the most disturbing image in his mind was the glowing dust pattern he saw on the floor. No one else had reacted to it. No one else had even turned to look. He was certain that only he could see it. When he reached his small apartment, he placed his cleaning jacket on the chair. His mind was still clouded. He sat down trying to calm himself. After a moment, he noticed something strange on the sleeve of his jacket, a soft glow, faint but unmistakable. His heartbeat rushed. He slowly lifted the fabric and saw a thin line of glowing particles spread across the cloth. They looked exactly like the dust on the school floor. He blinked hard, thinking. His mind was playing tricks on him. But the glow remained. Mark touched the fabric carefully. The particles reacted to his fingertip as if they recognized him. They moved slightly and formed a tiny curve. The movement was real. They were reacting to him alone. He placed the jacket down and stepped back. He had no idea what he was dealing with. His world had been normal only a few hours ago. Now he was looking at glowing dust that moved like it had a mind of its own. He searched the internet for anything that looked similar. But he found nothing. No disease, no chemical reaction, no kind of known energy. Everything he read made him more confused. The particles did not match anything on Earth. They behaved more like a signal or a code, something intelligent, something designed. But by whom and for what purpose? While Mark tried to understand the situation, his phone buzzed. He ignored it at first, but it kept vibrating. Finally, he checked the screen. It was a news alert from the local channel. A missing child report. His eyes widened when he saw the name. Lena, the same girl who collapsed in the hallway. The same girl everyone thought he had harmed. Mark felt a wave of dread wash over him. She had disappeared only hours after the incident, the report said. She was last seen near the nurse's office, and then she vanished. Security footage showed nothing unusual, no sign of struggle, no sign of escape. It was as if she walked away and vanished into thin air. The school was now under investigation. Police were searching the campus. Her mother was pleading for help. But the strangest part of the report was the final line. Witnesses said the girl looked dizzy and kept touching her arms as if something under her skin was bothering her. Mark felt a chill. The warmth on her skin, the glow on the floor, the dust on his jacket. It was all connected. He knew it even if he did not understand how. He picked up his jacket again and watched the particles closely. They began to move once more. This time, forming a clearer shape. A small spiral that slowly stretched into a line pointing toward the door. It was guiding him. Mark hesitated. Following glowing particles that appeared from nowhere felt insane. Yet something inside him pushed him forward. Something told him this was the only path that would lead to answers. And maybe even to Lena. He put the jacket on and stepped outside. The particles on the fabric brightened slightly. As he walked down the street, they shifted again, forming another directional line every time he reached a corner. The city looked normal, but Mark felt like he was walking through a different world. Every shadow seemed deeper. Every sound felt sharper. His senses were alert in a way he had never experienced before. The glowing trail guided him through narrow streets and quiet alleys until he reached a section of town near the industrial area. A place he rarely visited. Finally, he reached an old storage building with rusted metal doors. The particles on his sleeve stopped moving. They dimmed slightly as if they had led him to the exact place he needed to be. Mark stared at the building. He heard something faint inside. A soft, muffled sound like a child crying. His chest tightened. He stepped forward slowly, unsure of what waited for him behind the dark entrance. But he knew one thing clearly. Whatever was happening to Lena, whatever force had touched her had drawn him here for a reason, and he was no longer sure if he was ready to discover why. Mark stood outside the old storage building with the soft glow from his jacket fading. The air around him felt heavy, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The building looked abandoned, with dusty windows, cracked metal frames, and a large, dented door that hung crooked on its hinges. Nothing about it seemed alive, yet Mark heard that faint sound again. A muffled cry. It sent a sharp chill through his chest. He pressed his ear against the cold metal door. The sound came again, a little clearer this time. It was definitely the voice of a child. Mark felt a strong pull inside him. He had to help. He pushed the door gently. It creaked loud enough to make him wince. He paused, waiting for any reaction. None came. Slowly he stepped inside. The inside of the warehouse was dim. Only thin lines of light leaked through cracks in the roof. Dust floated in the air like tiny shadows. The place smelled old, like rust and forgotten years. Mark stood still, letting his eyes adjust. The glowing particles on his jacket came alive again, shining faintly. They drifted off the sleeve and floated into the darkness, as if inviting him to follow. Mark moved quietly. Each step echoed across the empty floor. He could feel the tension rising inside him. He had never been in a situation like this before. He was a janitor, a quiet man who cleaned hallways and fixed small problems. Now he was walking through a dark warehouse, chasing glowing dust that behaved like living code. His mind struggled to accept it, yet his body kept moving. The particles led him behind a row of tall metal crates. He turned the corner and froze. There on the floor was a small figure curled up with arms wrapped around her knees. It was Lena. Her hair was tangled and her clothes were dusty. Her face was pale. She looked weaker than she had at the school. Mark felt his breath catch. She was alive but clearly frightened. He stepped closer and whispered her name, Lena. Her eyes opened slowly. When she saw him, she flinched at first, but then stared with a mix of confusion and relief. She whispered his name in a weak voice. She remembered him. She had not forgotten what happened at the school. Mark knelt beside her and reached out gently. He asked if she was hurt. She shook her head, but her eyes looked distant, as if she was hearing things he could not hear. Before Mark could ask more, he felt a presence behind him. A shift in the air, a new sound. Not footsteps, but something softer. Something that moved like breath and shadow. He turned slowly. A tall figure stood several steps away. Its form was slim. Its skin dark and smooth like metal touched by moonlight. It had long arms and no clear facial features, except for two faint glowing marks where eyes should be. It stood silently watching him. Mark felt his entire body lock with fear. His voice barely escaped his throat. The creature did not move toward him. It simply raised one hand slowly. On its palm was the same glowing dust he had seen on his jacket and on the school floor. The particles swirled gently, as if responding to him. Mark realized the glowing trail had not appeared by accident. It had been created, designed, shaped by something intelligent. And that something was standing right in front of him. Mark shielded Lena with his arm instinctively. His heart pounded. He expected the creature to attack. Instead, it lowered its head slightly, a gesture that felt almost respectful. Then it pointed to Lena and then to Mark's jacket. Mark looked at the dust on his sleeve. It flickered softly. The message was clear, even if words were not spoken. He had been guided here, chosen to be here. Lena tugged at Mark's arm, trembling. She whispered that the creature had saved her. Mark stared at her, shocked. Saved her, she explained in broken words, that someone had been trying to take her. She did not understand who they were, but this creature stopped them and brought her here. To hide. Mark looked back at the creature. The fear inside him slowly shifted into something else. Confusion, curiosity, maybe even trust. The creature stepped back and motioned toward a dark corner of the warehouse. Mark hesitated, then followed its gesture with his eyes. There on the concrete floor was a strange pattern carved into the dust. It looked like a map or a coded symbol. The glowing particles from his sleeve drifted toward it, as if waiting. Mark knew he was standing at the edge of something far bigger than he ever imagined. Something connected to Lena, something connected to him, and something that was no longer hiding. His quiet life was over. The truth was coming fast, and he could feel it. The next step would change everything. Mark stood frozen in the quiet warehouse. The creature made no threat. It simply watched him with those strange glowing eyes. Lena held onto Mark's arm with a weak grip, as if she was trying not to disappear again. The air felt thick and still, like the world had paused to see what would happen next. The creature raised its hand again. This time the glowing dust swirled upward and formed a soft shimmering light. Mark shielded his eyes, but the glow was not harsh. It felt warm, almost gentle. The creature stepped closer very slowly, as if it did not want Mark to panic. Mark felt his heartbeat speed up, yet he did not move away. Something inside him whispered that the creature meant no harm. The glowing dust began creating shapes. First a circle, then another, then lines connecting them. Mark watched carefully. The creature was not attacking. It was trying to communicate. The shapes shifted again. Now the light formed a rough image of Lena. The next image showed Lena surrounded by humans wearing lab coats. The final image made Mark step back in shock. It showed Lena glowing from inside, her body filled with light like she carried a hidden star. Mark looked at the creature confused. It lowered its hand and placed the glowing dust back onto its chest. Then it touched the ground with one long finger. A soft pulse rippled across the warehouse floor like a silent wave. The dust patterns near the crates lit up in response. They formed symbols in a language Mark had never seen before. But he felt that the creature was sharing something important. Mark asked in a steady voice who it was. The creature tilted its head and tapped its chest twice. Then it pointed at Lena. Then it pointed at the glowing map on the floor. Mark began to understand. The creature was connected to her, maybe even responsible for whatever was happening to her body. Lena's voice trembled as she whispered that the creature had spoken to her earlier, but not with words. She could feel its thoughts. She could sense its fear. It was not afraid of Mark. It was afraid of the people who had taken her from the nurse's office. She explained that the creature found her before they could take her away again. Mark listened closely. Every detail made the picture grow bigger and stranger. He asked Lena if she remembered collapsing at school. She nodded slowly. She said she felt something buzzing inside her skin. Not painful but powerful, something that wanted to open. Something that did not belong to her, but was still part of her. The creature stepped closer again, and did something unexpected. It touched Mark's jacket sleeve very lightly. The glowing particles on the fabric reacted instantly. They glowed brighter and floated upward, forming another shape. This time the shape looked like a small spiral made of light. The creature pointed at the spiral, then pointed at Mark. Mark frowned. He did not understand at first. Then something clicked in his mind. The spiral looked exactly like the pattern he saw on the school floor. The pattern only he seemed able to see. The creature was saying it reacted to him, specifically. It was not random. It chose him. Mark whispered, "Why me?" He had no special skills. He was not a scientist. He was not a soldier. He was just a janitor. But the creature gently touched his chest over his heart. A message without words. A message Mark felt instead of heard. You see what others cannot. Mark stepped back overwhelmed. The creature pointed again to Lena, then to the dust, then to the warehouse door. Mark felt a wave of meaning wash over him. Someone else was coming. Someone dangerous. Someone hunting Lena for reasons he could not yet fully understand. The creature was trying to protect her, but it could not do it alone. Lena reached for Mark's hand. She looked terrified but also hopeful. She trusted him. Mark felt a strange courage rise inside him, a courage he did not recognize. It was not the courage of a hero. It was the quiet, steady courage of someone who simply refused to walk away. The creature suddenly turned its head sharply toward the entrance. Its body stiffened. Mark heard something too. A faint hum outside growing louder. A mechanical sound. Cold and precise. Drones. Or something worse. The creature pointed toward a dark exit on the far side of the warehouse, urging Mark and Lena to move. Mark lifted Lena quickly and held her against him. She whispered that the creature was warning them. Not only were humans involved, something else was searching for her. Mark looked back once at the creature. It nodded as if telling him to go. The dust on his jacket glowed once more, forming a single line pointing toward the exit. Mark ran with Lena in his arms. He did not know what waited outside. He did not know what the creature truly was. But one thing had become clear. Lena was not a normal child. Something inside her was waking up, and Mark had become part of it. Mark held Lena tightly as he rushed toward the back exit of the warehouse. The glowing particles on his jacket continued to flicker, guiding him like a weak beacon in the dark. Behind him, the alien creature stood tall, facing the front entrance, as if preparing for something it had been avoiding for a long time. The faint mechanical hum outside grew louder, vibrating through the metal walls. Mark knew danger was seconds away. As they reached the back door, Mark pushed it open. The cold wind hit their faces. The alley behind the warehouse was narrow, filled with broken crates and old pipes. The glowing particles on his sleeve brightened, pointing down the alley. Mark moved quickly, supporting Lena, who was still weak. Each step felt heavy. His mind kept repeating one thought. They were being hunted, and he had no idea by whom. Suddenly a loud metallic click echoed from above. Mark looked up and his blood ran cold. A drone hovered above the alley. Its black surface reflected the faint streetlight, and its red eye focused directly on them. He heard a sharp rising pitch from its body. It was scanning. It was searching for something. Or someone. Mark pulled Lena behind a metal dumpster. The drone moved slowly, drifting like a predator that already smelled its prey. Lena pressed her forehead against Mark's shoulder, shaking. She whispered that the drone was not human-made. She could feel its signal inside her head. The same buzzing she felt before collapsing at school. Whatever was inside her was connected to this machine. The drone paused, then turned sharply toward their hiding spot. Mark knew they had seconds before it spotted them. The glowing dust on his sleeve suddenly pulsed bright. For the first time, Mark felt something warm spread across his skin. It was not fear, it was energy. He reached out and touched the side of the dumpster. The drone began to lower, aiming directly where they hid. In a moment of instinct, Mark stepped forward. He raised his hand toward the drone. He did not know why. He only knew the glowing particles were reacting. The drone's red eye flashed once. Then its body began to shiver, not a normal shake. A distortion, like the signal inside it was breaking apart. A loud crack burst through the alley, and the drone dropped from the air, crashing onto the ground. Lena stared at Mark in shock. She asked what he did. Mark looked at his hand, trembling. He had no answer. He had never felt anything like that. The creature in the warehouse said he could see what others could not. But this was something else. The drone had reacted to his touch from a distance, as if his body disrupted its energy. They could not stay here. More drones were searching. Mark lifted Lena again and ran through the alley. The glowing dust kept shifting, creating new lines that pointed the way. The city around them felt different. Lights flickered. Air hummed. Shadows moved in ways he did not trust. Whatever force had touched, Lena was growing stronger. And Mark felt pulled deeper into its center. As they reached a street crowded with old buildings, Mark saw flashing headlights approaching fast. A black van turned the corner and stopped abruptly. Men in dark uniforms stepped out carrying equipment that looked like advanced scanners. These were not normal police. Their movements were too precise, their eyes too cold. Lena gasped. She whispered that these were the same people who tried to take her earlier. Mark held her closer. He looked for another way to escape, but the street was narrow and the van blocked the entire path. One of the uniformed men lifted a small device. It pointed directly at Lena and the screen glowed bright. He shouted that he detected the target. Mark ran the other direction. He sprinted into another alley. The men followed without hesitation. The chase sent fear crawling up Mark's spine. He was not trained for this. He was not prepared. Yet he kept running because Lena needed him. Her breathing grew harsh. She clung to his shirt, whispering that something inside her was waking up. Something old. Something powerful. They reached a dead end. A tall brick wall stood before them. Mark cursed under his breath. He turned to face the approaching footsteps. There was no escape. The glowing particles on his jacket moved faster, swirling around his arm. Lena looked at them and whispered a strange sentence. She said they recognized him. They were choosing him. The men stepped into the alley, raising their weapons. The air filled with tense silence. The glowing dust brightened. Mark felt a strong pulse inside his chest. The same energy that broke the drone now surged again. He stepped in front of Lena, ready to shield her with his own body. The ground beneath them trembled. A burst of light exploded at the far end of the alley. The alien creature stepped out of the radiance, tall and silent, its glowing eyes fixed on the men. The dust trails swarmed around it like living light. Mark realized the creature had followed them. It had not abandoned them. It was protecting them. The hunt had only just begun. The bright flash faded slowly as the alien creature stepped fully into the alley. Its tall frame stood like a silent wall between Mark, Lena, and the armed men. The glowing dust swirled around the creature's body in smooth waves, moving as if they were alive. The men hesitated, but only for a moment. Then they raised their strange weapons again. The creature watched them without fear. Mark held Lena close. He could feel her trembling, but she was not shaking from fear alone. Something inside her was shifting again, like a slow awakening that struggled to stay quiet. Her skin felt warm. Not dangerously hot, but full of energy. A soft glow ran across her arms like light beneath her skin. Mark had no idea what was happening to her. He only knew he could not let these men take her. One of the men shouted for the creature to step aside. His voice shook with anger. The creature did not move. Instead, it lifted one hand. A wave of glowing dust shot forward like a burst of silent wind. The men staggered but held their ground. They activated shields that shimmered blue in the darkness. The dust waves hit the shields and broke apart. The creature stepped back slightly, as if surprised. Mark felt a pull inside his chest. He looked down at his jacket sleeve. The glowing particles were swirling faster than ever before. They reacted to the danger. They reacted to him. He felt a strange pressure building in his hands and arms. Something rising like a signal. He did not understand it, but he felt it clearly. The same energy that knocked down the drone now returned stronger. The men pushed forward again. One aimed at Mark. The device in his hands made a sharp rising tone. Lena grabbed Mark's arm. She whispered, "Do not let them touch me." Her voice sounded different, stronger than before. Her eyes glowed faintly. The creature turned us toward Mark suddenly. For the first time, it pointed directly at his chest. Not at Lena, and not at the attackers. At Mark. A message formed in his mind. Without words. Not spoken, and not heard. Felt. You can stop them. Mark shook his head. He was only a janitor. He had no training, no weapons, no power. But the creature continued staring at him with calm, glowing eyes, as if Mark had more value. than he ever believed. As if he carried something rare inside him. Before Mark could think further, the men charged. The creature leapt forward to intercept, but two of the men slipped past it and rushed toward Mark and Lena. Mark stepped back, hitting the wall. He held Lena protectively. The glowing dust on his jacket suddenly rose in a bright pulse. It moved around his arms, forming small spirals of light. He felt a rush of heat in his hands, like invisible energy gathering. The first man reached for Lena. Mark reacted without thinking. He thrust his hand forward. A blast of shimmering light shot out from his palm. It struck the man directly in the chest. His shield collapsed instantly, and he fell backward, hitting the ground with a loud cry. Mark stared at his own hand in shock. He had not known he could do that. His heart pounded with fear and awe. Lena looked at him with wide eyes, not scared, but amazed. She whispered, "You stopped him. You really stopped him." The second man rushed in. Mark lifted his arm again. The glowing particles responded faster this time. The energy inside his body moved like it knew what to do. Another burst of light shot out. The man's weapon flew from his hand. He stumbled backward, hitting the wall. The creature fought the remaining men with silent efficiency. The alley filled with swirling dust, flashes of light, and the sound of collapsing shields. Mark stood breathing hard, but something inside him felt clearer. The fear was still there, but now he felt another emotion rising: strength, purpose, as if a hidden part of him was waking up, just like Lena. The battle slowed. The remaining men retreated toward the street, dragging their injured companions. They shouted into their comm devices, calling for backup. The creature stood tall, watching them flee. Once they were gone, it turned back to Mark and Lena. Mark lowered his shaking hands. He felt overwhelmed and confused. He asked the creature what he had done. Why did he have this ability? The creature stepped closer and gently touched his arm. The glowing particles floated between them, creating a soft light. Mark felt another message in his mind. Not your power, your resistance. Your human signal disrupts them. You break what they control. Lena held his hand. She looked up at him with tired, glowing eyes. She said that whatever was inside her also reacted to him. His presence calmed the buzzing inside her skin. Mark realized something incredible. He was not just helping her, he was stabilizing her, protecting her from whatever force hunted her. The creature motioned toward the end of the alley. A door opened in the ground. A hidden bunker. A safe place. Lena leaned against Mark, weak but trusting. Mark lifted her gently and followed the creature down the steps. The danger was growing. But so was Mark. And his hidden strength was only beginning to reveal itself. The bunker door closed behind Mark, Lena, and the alien creature. The world above them fell silent, leaving only the soft hum of hidden machines deep underground. The bunker. Walls were made of smooth metal, and glowing lines ran across them like living veins of light. Everything felt advanced, far beyond human technology. Mark held Lena close as she leaned weakly against him. Her skin still glowed faintly with the strange energy building inside her. The creature moved to the center of the chamber. With a slow motion, it placed its hand against a circular panel. The lines on the walls brightened, and then a large holographic display appeared. Mark stared at the images with wide eyes. He saw stars, planets, and strange symbols all rotating in a vast map of the galaxy. The creature pointed to a pulsing red mark near the edge of the display. Then it pointed at Lena. Mark felt his chest tighten. He asked what the red mark meant. Lena answered softly before the creature could respond. She said it was a breach. A door between worlds. Something was trying to come through. She clutched her arms as a wave of heat moved through her. She whispered that whatever lived beyond that breach was calling to her. Not with words, but with a force that tugged at her very bones. The creature created another image. It showed Lena glowing brighter. Then it showed a massive structure opening in the sky. The message became clear to Mark. Lena was the key to activating the breach. If she lost control, the invaders could enter Earth. That was why the drones and the uniformed men wanted her, not to save her. To use her. Mark looked at the creature and asked how to stop it. The creature moved its hands again, creating a final image. It showed Lena standing beside Mark. Mark's body glowed with the same energy he used to destroy the drone and disable the soldiers. His human signal formed a barrier around the breach, a shield. Something only he could create. Lena spoke again, her voice shaking. She said she could feel the breach forcing its way open. She said she needed Mark close because his presence kept her stable. Without him, the energy inside her would explode. Mark felt fear but also determination. He realized the truth. He was not chosen by accident. He was not here because of luck. Something inside him made him the one person who could help her fight this. The ground suddenly shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. A deep thunder rolled through the bunker. The creature turned sharply toward the entrance. The invaders had found them. Another shockwave hit the bunker walls. Lights flickered. Machines hummed louder. Lena cried out as a bright glow spread across her skin. She whispered that the breach was forcing itself open faster. Mark lifted her into his arms. He looked at the creature and asked what to do now. The creature opened another passage deeper into the bunker. It led to a chamber filled with swirling energy. A ring structure stood at the center, glowing like a newborn star. The creature motioned for Mark and Lena to step inside. Mark hesitated for only a moment. Then he carried Lena into the glowing ring. The light surrounded them both. He felt a powerful pulse rise from Lena's chest. The breach was calling her. It wanted her energy. It wanted to open fully. Mark wrapped his arms around her as the glow intensified. His jacket particles burst into bright spirals around them. His human signal began to respond on its own. The invaders broke through the outer bunker door. Heavy footsteps echoed through the tunnels. The creature blocked their path, sending waves of dust like living shields. But the soldiers pushed forward. Drones followed them. Strange shapes crawled along the wall's shadows that did not belong to Earth. The battle grew louder. The bunker shook again. Inside the ring, Lena screamed. Her body shone like pure light. She told Mark she could not control it anymore. She begged him not to let go. Mark tightened his hold on her. His own body glowed now. His pulse matched hers. He whispered that she was not alone. That he would not leave her no matter what came. The energy around them spun faster. A massive wave burst outward, filling the entire chamber. Mark felt strength he never knew he had. He reached forward with his hand. The glowing dust swarmed his arm and shot into the air, forming a massive shield of human energy. The breach opened for one final attempt. A dark force pushed through the air, bending light and shaking the ground. Mark stepped forward, still holding Lena. He pushed his glowing shield into the breach. The darkness screamed silently. The two forces met in a blinding flash. Then everything went still. The light faded slowly. The breach collapsed in on itself, disappearing like smoke and wind. The ground stopped shaking. The invaders vanished. Their signal was gone. Mark fell to his knees, holding Lena, who now lay quietly in his arms. Her glow faded, leaving her normal. Again, she breathed softly like a child waking from a long dream. The creature approached them, slowly lowering its head in deep respect. Mark had saved her. And in doing so, he had saved humanity. He was not just a janitor anymore. He was the one human who noticed what no one else could. And he chose to fight when it mattered most. The end of the story was not the end of Mark. It was the beginning of what he was meant to become.